Hello everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Get Crafty with Sally. My name is Sally Poole. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Albany, Oregon. I'm glad you could join me today. As you can see, I am still playing with the Peace on Earth bundle. It is so beautiful. The card that we're going to make today, I am calling a Z-fold slatted card. I guess it should be a double Z-fold maybe. There are things on YouTube that are similar to this, but I made some changes to it. So let me show you part of the suite. The suite is called Peaceful Garden Suite. It will be coming up in the new mini catalog, which I can't open yet until it's released next month. So the Peaceful Garden Suite includes the Peace on Earth stamp and die bundle. The stamp set has these beautiful sentiments with some really pretty fonts. The dies are great. I love the doves. I love these frames. It also includes the Peaceful Garden Designer Series paper. I used quite a few of the different patterns in the cards that I'll be showing you today, my sample cards. It also has an embossing folder called Peaceful Greenery. I used this in my last video, so if you want to check out how this works, you can go see that. It's got foliage around the outside. One of those frames is in the middle. You can use the die cut to fit your pieces right into that. There's also some really nice Misty Moonlight ribbon with a silver edge. Hopefully you can see that. It's really shiny. It's really soft. I think it's going to tie a bow really nice. It is 1/2 inch wide. Not my favorite, but I'll make it work. I think the only other thing in the suite that I didn't get, there are some self-adhesive little flower gem type things that are really cute. I will have to order some. And they're kind of in the blue tones, and I can't remember, but there might also be white. So anyway, this is what we're going to make today. And as you can see, there are, for each Designer Series paper, all over the front, I have also put a panel behind it in basic white, and then the card base. It's not really super thick. I mean, you can still mail it. It might require the non-machinable stamp. It's not really heavy. So let me show you what you're going to need to make this, and don't freak out because there's a lot of pieces. You can do it. I know you can. So are you ready? Ta-da! Ta-da! And that is a lot of pieces. I didn't count how many pieces there are, but there are quite a few. So you can grab a screenshot of this if you want. As always, I will have a PDF with all of these measurements and the supplies that I used to make this card. So I'm going to set these aside. Hopefully I can keep track of everything. I did already glue some of the little pieces together that have panel pieces behind them to save some time. Hopefully this video just doesn't go extremely long. First of all, I'm going to use my trimmer, and I'm going to extend the arm. Even though I already have the card base and the little slat pieces done, I thought I would show you how I cut this. So I am going to place the 8.5, this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of cloud cover cardstock. I'm going to place the 8.5 inch side up against the edge here at the top. And I am going to cut this paper at 7 1/4. And we can save this piece for another time. And then I'm going to score it at 1.5 inches and 3 inches. My blade's about to fall out. But I'm going to leave it the way that it is. I'm going to score it on this now 7 1/4 inch edge. So we're scoring at 1.5. And the light blade is the scoring blade. It won't cut your paper. And then scoring it again at 3 inches. So this obviously isn't an entire card base. I just wanted to point out that it's easier to cut the card base and then the slat pieces from the same piece of cardstock that you've scored the same. They all seem to match up better when you do that. So now we are going to cut this at 5.5 inches for our card base. So there's our card base. And then we're also going to cut it at 1 inch. And we need 2 pieces of 1 inch. One for the top and one for the bottom. So there's our second 1 inch piece. And then we also need a piece that is 2 1/4 inches. You can change the size of these strips up if you want. You could do 2 larger ones if you wanted, or you could do 4 1-inch strips. That would look kind of cool. You just want to make sure that you leave a little space in between here that you can see behind it. So I'm going to set all those aside. And I'm going to try to grab my card base and my slatted strips without trashing anything else. So I'm going to grab my chair. I did bring a new bottle of glue, so hopefully it's not too liquidy. So the first thing we're going to do, there's our little slats. Here's our base, 5.5 by 7 1/4, scored at 1.5 and 3 inches. So we're going to, I'm going to flip this over, and remember I'm left-handed. I'm going to fold that back, and then I'm going to fold it over this way, give it a good press with my bone folder. So we've got a mountain fold, can you see the mountain, and then a valley fold, and then our Z. So let's set that aside. We're going to grab our little slatted strips, and then we're also going to fold these and score them. So this one comes up that way and then goes this way. And I'm going to try to line these edges up before I score it. And these pieces, even though we're folding them what seems to be the same, they actually end up on the other end. So let's do the same thing with our 1 inch by 7 1/4 pieces. So that one goes up. Give that a good press. Fold it back the other way. And I forgot to put my colored piece of cardstock down. I should have done that first to keep the camera from trying to focus. So that's the way that one's going to go on the card. Let me grab my scrap paper piece. Hopefully this will help. So what we're going to do, and I always do the top and the bottom first so that I can get the middle centered, even though I do mark it and measure it. So remember, this end you've got folded, excuse me, and this end you've got folded. So I'm going to flip this over. Let me take the lid off my glue. And if you flip it over and lay it where it's going to fit in that little edge, you can see exactly where you need to put your glue, and you don't want to go past this score line underneath. In fact, I wouldn't even go up to it because you don't want glue on that panel or it's not going to open and close properly. So I'm going to turn it that way so I can see this corner to line things up properly. You can also turn it over if you want, make sure it's straight. Hold that for a few seconds, let that glue take a hold. Getting a tickle in my throat. So let's take the second piece, folds on the right side. We're going to flip it over, put some glue on it like we did the first one. And then we'll line this corner up, and it just goes right to the edges, this side and the bottom. Excuse my tickly throat. And then I am going to, since this is 5.5, I am going to make a pencil mark at the halfway point of 5.5, which is 2 3/4. 2 3/4. You're not going to be able to see it because we are going to glue a piece over the top of it. So let's take our middle piece, folding on the right. I'm going to flip it over so I can see where my glue goes. Put some glue on there. And now I am going to, I don't know if you can see this or not, on my grid paper, let me scoot it up. I'm going to line this up on, let's say, the number 5. Doesn't matter where you put it. And that's, I've got my pencil mark on the number 5. So that is the center of this piece. So you're going to have 1 1/4 on either side of the 5. So I'm going to put one end of my strip at 6 1/8. Did I say 1/4 inch? You'll have 1/8. So 6 1/8. And then 3 7/8, right? Hope I'm not saying the numbers wrong. We'll give that a press. Did that make sense? I hope so. Okay, so now let's glue our other ends down. So I'm going to flip this over And then I'm just going to flip this end piece over and put some glue on the back of it. Make sure this is all flat and lay that down. Give it a good press. Don't know what that, oh, I guess it's just the edge of the paper. And then we'll move to the next one, do the same thing. Get a little glue on there. Flip that over, lay it down. Give it a good press. Flip this one up, put some glue on it. Lay that down and give it a press. You don't want to start messing with it too soon. I'll show you in a minute how it folds, and hopefully it's not too soon and things come undone. So I'm going to turn it back over, because remember, these are on the right, the ones that we just glued. So there is our fold, our card base. Give that a nice little press. And now we can start putting all of those little pieces together. So the first thing I'm going to do, I am going to take these no, I'm not. Oh, shoot. You know what? I forgot, and I wasn't going to forget. There's two pieces in here that one of them says base panel 2, which is this one. And I should have put these down before I did the slats. I could probably get them in there, but I think it's going to be pretty impossible, so I'm not even going to try. This one's 1 3/8 by 5 3/8, and it says base panel number 2, which means if you had the card base, I'm going to call this first fold base panel 1 and this one 2. That should have been glued underneath there. Can you see that? And then base panel 3, 2 5/8 by 5 3/8. I should have glued it right there. And it's okay, because I have some card samples that don't have that behind there, but I do think it looks nicer when that's in there. And you do want to make sure that you've got your designer series paper going the right way, and I'll show you why. I did one of these, put everything together, and then I glued both of these upside down. Most people probably wouldn't notice, but you can see that the leaves are going the wrong way here. So, not sure what I'll do with that one. Anyway, poopers for me not putting those in there. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to do is, let's take our I'm not sure why I've got my these are for the left and right panels. These, they are the 1 1/4 by 5 1/4 for the designer series paper, and there's 2 of those. And then underneath that is a layer of basic white that is 1 3/8 by 5 3/8, and there's 2 of those. So let's glue our designer series paper down. And it's funny because I can sit here and make these and glue all these pieces together, but when I am trying to explain it, I think I'm confusing myself. So there's one. Let's put glue on the second piece, because it really isn't that hard to put together, and I hope I don't make it appear that it is. I did cut the designer series paper pieces one after the other, so there is going to be, you can see that that's where I cut it. So it's up to you whether you want to put it on your card base that way. It doesn't really matter, nobody's going to know. So let's put some glue on our white piece. This glue really is not wanting to come out for some reason. So you can just flatten that out. I'm going to put my super duper glasses on so I can see the score line. So you want to line this up between that first score line fold and then this edge. Make everything even, top and bottom. And then we'll put glue on the back of this one. I've still got my super duper magnifier glasses on, so this is kind of hard to see. I am going to, since I'm left-handed, turn that upside down, make sure that I've got my leaves going the right way. And we'll lay this one down in between that score line and the edge, getting it all even. So that is that. So far, so good. So let's now, I'm going to switch glasses again. Let's take our, I'm going to grab my the middle piece that goes here. So the white one is 2 1/8 by 2 5/8. And the designer series paper is 2 by 2 1/2. So let's put some glue on our designer series paper. Line that all up, get the edges even. And then we'll put some glue on the back. I'm so upset that I forgot to put those designer series paper pieces in there. So let's lay this one right in here. And again, you just want to even everything up. If I had my designer series paper behind there, I could see everything a lot better. Now I'm getting glue all over my fingers. So I've already got the, let me grab these. There's 2 pieces of 7/8 by 2 5/8, and then 2 pieces of 3/4 by 2 1/2. These get layered together and they get put on the top and bottom. I do already have 2 of those glued together. So we can just put some glue on the back and adhere these to the card. Scoot that out of the way. I'm going to get my little reverse tweezers. So let's put this one down here on the bottom. That really slid all over the place. And I am going to poke that in there so I can see better. And then we'll put the piece on the top. So for the right side, we've got this white piece that goes behind the designer series paper, 2 1/8 by 1 3/8. The designer series paper is 2 by 1 1/4. So let's put some glue on that one. And if you decide to put a patterned paper on these panels, which I'll show you an example in a couple of minutes, you want to make sure that when you're cutting these pieces, because it's going to go one way that way, but this way turns. So you want to make sure that everything's going in the right direction when you cut it. So just be mindful when you're cutting paper with a pattern that it's going to end up going the right way. So let's put this one down, get it all centered again. And then I've already got these 7/8 by 1 3/8. There's 2 of those, top and bottom, for the white, and then 3/4 by 1 1/4 for the designer series paper that goes on top of it. I've already got 2 of those glued together. So let's put some glue on those and get them adhered to the card front. Scooch this out of the way. And it just flipped over. So here's the, let me scoot that down a little bit farther. Here's the bottom one. And there really is no bottom and top. It's just whichever one you grab. So here's the top piece. Okay, so that's where all of those little pieces went that we started with. So it really isn't that horrible. So the next thing we're going to do from the 2 1/2 inch by 4 1/4 panel, I have cut with the largest frame. So I've got this piece, that's the larger frame, and with the, I use the same size, 2 1/2 by 4 1/4 for the sentiment. I stamped my sentiment first, and then I cut it with the smaller frame. And the sentiment is actually from this stamp set. You can see there's little pieces of things here. I just did sending love. So I don't know if wishing you would fit. I think it would. So I always stamp things first and then cut them out, especially when they're that close. So let's take our little white framed panel and glue it to the Misty Moonlight. They're exactly the same shape. They fit together really nicely. I think that looks good. So now we're going to glue that piece down to our card front, the little slats. So you can see we're only going to put glue in the middle here because it's really not going to reach those other pieces. And again, I probably put way more glue on than I need, or than anybody needs. So what I'm going to do is try to center this and kind of also make it even at the top and the bottom. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and for this sample card, I cut the dove out of another piece of the Designer Series paper that's in the pack. I really like it. Some people might not. They might think it looks a little too busy. So I did cut a dove for this card out of, that's what the scrap of silver foil is for. And so you can see, I always like to lay these little pieces down before I glue them because there are places that you don't want to put the glue. So I don't need that top of the wing. I don't really need it over here. I don't think you'd want to pop this up on dimensionals because the card is already thick. You probably could, but I'm not going to. So let's put some glue on the dove, if I can get it to come out. And I'm not going to put it over there on that side. And then we'll lay this, and you can put it, you know, decide what angle you want it to be at. Glue that down. Got a little fuzzo there. And then I am using the Festive Pearls, the little silver pearls for this card. I am going to put one right up here, and I'll set one right over here, and then how about one down here at the bottom again. So you could also, if there wasn't enough paper to begin with, you could also cut some more paper for the back of this if you wanted. You could cut a, let's see, this is, so you probably want 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white to write on. So that is the card. Let me make sure I don't step on a dog. And that is, man, I've got a lot of stuff everywhere. So there is the original sample with the dove in designer series paper. There's the silver dove. And then this is the very first one I did. And you can see that it's just white in the background because I hadn't thought about it. This one, I didn't turn the frame pieces this way. I stamped Peace on Earth in, gosh, I can't even think of what it's called. Embossing powder, silver embossing powder. And I took, this is actually smaller than this die. So if you cut just one side of it, don't cut the whole thing out, and then scoot the die back over and then cut the other end out, you can get it to come out like this. And then this one's got 2 silver foil doves on it, and then some of the little stars. So that, I think, is a pretty piece of DSP. Here is another sample with some other DSP. Same card design as these. And I only put the larger panel of designer series paper behind here. You can see how I progressed. None, 1, and then, oops, I guess that's the one that has 2. This one only has 1 also. This is pretty similar to this card. However, I did put the embossing powder in silver on basic white. I don't know if that's going to show up or not. And then I used one of the different papers in the pack. I thought those were really pretty. So that is my card for today. I hope I haven't freaked everybody out, scared everybody off. You can do it. I know it's a lot of pieces, but once you do one and get going, I think that you can slap them together pretty quick. So let me know what you think about it. I am loving this set. If you're getting anything out of my videos, please give me the thumbs up, hit the like button, share my video with your friends and family. And if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would appreciate it if you would do so. It does help my channel grow. Thanks again for stopping by and spending some time with me. I really appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye.